Tonight I will be sharing 6 stories from a range of different topics, as per usual. Paranormal and psychological horror will be of main focus, but as always, there will be some surprises scattered throughout. A huge thank you to the writers who allowed me to share their stories. They are the ones who make these videos possible, and there are links to where you can find more of their work in the description. Remember, you can send in your own story to rylhstories@gmail.com. If you enjoy the video, likes and comments are always appreciated, as I read every single one. Subscribing if you're new is as well. Enjoy the video, and as always, I hope you all have a great night. My family, mom, papa, and sister, had been away from home for a few days. They had some work abroad and I had too much of holiday homeworks to go. Everything was going well. I, for starters, was very excited to be alone for almost a week. It was scary at first. I had to eat alone, lock all the gates, and sleep alone. Out of all my fears, darkness is one of them, but I managed. This night though, it wasn't darkness that was making me anxious. It was a very intense feeling, but I didn't know why my body was reacting this way. My mind went to the possibility of a burglar in the house, but I had already locked the gate. Every bolt. I got up to check again just in case. Locked. I felt safe but still anxious. I thought it to be one of those nights. I wanted to call my sister, but she was probably asleep. She's a big morning person. I've no idea why. Then I decided to call my mom. The number you're trying to speak to is currently unavailable. What? I was frustrated. I really was an attention seeker sometimes. I connected the charger to my phone and tried to sleep. The birds were chirping when finally my eyes got heavy. I woke up fairly early the next morning. I blamed it on my anxiety, which had started again. It's not a good feeling. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted someone to comfort me, and apart from the fact that I was, in fact, alone, I felt even more alone. My anxiety never got on the verge of panic attacks. But I started watching YouTube to keep me company, just in case. After a while, I couldn't concentrate on YouTube, so I decided to call my mother.
Hello?
Mom, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, honey. Are you fine?
Yeah, I'm fine, Mom. I'm just not feeling that well.
What happened? Are you not eating well? Have you been drinking milk every night?
Yes, Mom. I drank 1 glass right now. I lied. But not that kind of well. I'm feeling anxious. Are you all okay?
Oh, sweetie, we're all...
I can't hear you properly. You there?
Hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, I don't know what's up with the signals. So tell...
Honey, is it bad?
What? She said the next line in the most monotonous voice I've heard.
Is it as bad as we had?
I didn't know who was we because no one in my family except my mother had anxiety. Except she was talking about something else bad. Mom?
Don't worry, honey. We're coming soon, okay?
Yeah, okay. Take care.
You too, sweetie. You too. Love you.
Love you too. Our conversation ended, but I was repeating the conversation again and again in my mind. What did she mean by as bad as we had? Who was we? What was bad? I got up and thought of completing some homework. It was nighttime when I got up. I quickly heated up my dinner, cozied up in my sofa, and ate while watching TV. I love this loneliness, not the kind I was feeling yesterday. After eating and cleaning the dishes, I made my bed. Once in bed, I played on my mobile a bit before I went to sleep. The next morning, early morning, I got a call. It was my sister. I rubbed my eyes and looked at the time, 5:13. I picked it up.
Open the door. We're here.
I jumped out of my bed to greet my family. The bell rang 2 times. I'm coming. I gave the biggest hug to my sister. They were quite amused to see me this excited. My sister said, "Geez, guess we couldn't leave you alone for 4 days, or you'll become a frickin' dog." I laughed at her comment and got my mother's bag to get it to her room. "Where's Dad?" "Oh, he's coming right up. Just bringing the big bags. I'll go help him." With a big smile, I went and got to the front porch to help my dad. Once everyone was in the house, I sat on the sofa smiling like an idiot. I was pretty happy. I couldn't help it. A day went by. We talked. Mom gave me things she bought while away. Some clothes and stuff. A few days later, it was Saturday afternoon and everyone was dozing off. I remembered that they haven't shown me the pictures they took. I decided to take my sister's phone and look into the gallery. I opened it. The first one was a video. The thumbnail was all black. I had a small thought that it was probably a 2-second video of the camera being covered or something, because my sister wanted to take photos but the camera was on video mode. But little did I know what effect it would have on me. The video was almost 7 minutes long, and the date it was taken on was 3 days ago. I clicked on the thumbnail. Black screen. Then I heard some chanting. Panicked chanting. The video brightened, and I heard some more of it. Same words over and over. People were praying. Over and over again to save their lives. My eyebrows furrowed and my stomach twisted. My breathing got faster as my eyes tried to process what I was seeing. The video was filmed in a plane, and my family was in there, but they should be in their hotel that day. Did they take an early plane? What was going on? I saw the passengers clutching onto their front seats in a crawling position. They were being instructed to do that. The air hostesses were repeating over and over again to keep calm. I have never been this confused before. They surely were in an emergency situation, but my family happened to be in the plane. How? They were not supposed to be there until 1 day ago. I heard my sister's whimpers. I could feel that she was shaking and clutching the phone tightly. My mom was on the verge of tears in one frame. The next second I saw my father. I've never seen him like this. His perfectly made hair was all sticking out, and sweat was dripping from his forehead. He was trying to shield my mom and sister, but I could tell he was very, very scared. I felt my heart beat even faster, my eyes burning and a lump in my throat. Why was I crying? I was so confused. I stopped the video for a moment, huffing hard. I was shocked. Seeing my family in this situation was terrifying. I couldn't process it. I got up and checked the time, touched the tables, the walls, just to be sure I was in reality. I checked my living room to search for my parents and sister. They were still asleep. I got on my sister's phone again and touched the play button. The screen was shaking badly now, and this time I could tell it was not my sister. The plane was shaking, and hard. Is it turbulence? No, it can't be, I said as my mind tried to rationalize the situation. The next frame got me shaking. Smoke was coming out and was visible on the screen. I don't know whether I knew what was happening or not. Any calm mind would have understood what was happening, but my mind was literally clueless. Guess I didn't want to think about the reality. I still wished it was some Photoshop video or an internet video. Screams filled my ears, babies crying, mothers clutching their babies and crying. The screen went thud on the floor, and I saw my family in the frame. My vulnerable family, clutching their hands together and crying. The smoke clouded the screen, and I saw my family fade away. I saw them, and felt as if it was my last time seeing them, although I had seen them not too long ago. Or have I? I ran to the living room again, my cheeks flushed, body shaking, and tears running down to drench my neck and t-shirt. I saw my mom waking up, and I ran into her arms. I touched her face like a newborn child, and kissed her cheeks over and over again. She was crying too. And as I lay in her lap, my dad and sister enclosed around me and hugged me, crying bitterly. We're sorry. We're so sorry. We didn't want to leave you. We came to look after you, sweetheart. You will never be alone. Dad said while crying, even if we die. I worked at a body farm in Knoxville, Tennessee for the past 5 years, as a forensic entomologist. For those of you who don't know what a body farm is a research and training facility where human decomposition can be studied in a variety of settings. In plain English, we watch dead people decompose. There are only 7 of these in existence across the entire United States. The farm itself is scattered with bodies of all types. Most of the bodies are given to us by the individual before death, or by the family after. Sometimes when nobody claims a body, the city will give it to us to use on our farm. We take bodies of every race, gender, body type, etc. It is important to know how a fat person decomposes compared to a skinny person, or a female in her mid-30s versus a female in her late 80s. We place the bodies in different places. Some are left out in an open field in the sun, some are in the forest, some are in the water, and others are placed in cages to stop birds like vultures from being able to pick at the body. We do not cover or cage all bodies, since there are birds in nature. Having a body farm is a very important part of law enforcement, helping solve murders and questionable deaths. A missing person could be found days, weeks, or even years later. By having a body farm, we can determine how long a person has been dead. The shape the body is in will give law enforcement lots of important details. If a body has been dead a few days, you might just see the beginning stages, such as the smell of a rotting corpse and the maggots. There are lots and lots of maggots. As time goes on, the body may be bloated with all the gazes, and later on, the skin will turn a brownish color. It is a little like when a banana goes bad, it turns brown and mushy. Bodies are a lot like that. It also lets us study the environment after the body is decomposed. Did you know the vegetation where a body has rotted will die, leaving only a bare patch of dirt afterward? Even more interesting, when vegetation grows back in a place a body was at, after the grass will be healthier and taller than the surrounding vegetation. Next time you are on a hike and see a taller patch of grass, someone may have been murdered there. Kinda cool, right? The way the body farm is set up is a large fenced-in rectangular area, with the admin building in the front. Once outside, there is a large field with a small tree lining the side fence with a gate. At the back, there is a pond and swampy type area. On the right is a wooded area extended back away to the bordering fence. The total size is almost 5 acres. On the adjoining side of the wooded area fence is a restricted military area. Nobody knows exactly what they are doing on the other side of that fence. Hardly anyone even knows it exists, because publicly, they don't exist. For the past 5 years I have worked here, I have always wondered what they were hiding in there. The area is locked down like Area 51. There is the barbed wire topped fence, security cameras, armed guards posted 24/7, and motion detection lights around the perimeter. I could never stop thinking of why they would want to place something like that important on a body farm, and what type of weird experiments they might do inside those walls. I had to somehow find out. Some days I would walk close to the enclosure. You could see nothing, since whatever they were hiding was on the other side of the wooded area. But I just wanted to see how close I could get to the fence before they sent someone or the motion detection cameras caught me. The answer is about 15 feet from the fence before you are noticed. One guard asked me what I was up to, but I just told him I was walking around the grounds, checking on the bodies, and apologized for him having to come out. He bought the excuse and seemed happy to not accidentally cross any decaying bodies on our side. I was given a warning by my supervisor and told to stay away from the fence. I'm sure the military bosses were not happy someone was prowling along their fence. I backed off for a few weeks, but eventually started to patrol in different areas around their fence. Eventually, I found a place where the cameras had a blind spot. I could get right up to the fence and nobody noticed. Over the next few weeks, I continued to visit this part of the fence and stay there for longer and longer, and luckily, nobody ever came to check things out. I threw some sticks over the fence to see if it would trip a motion detector, but again, nothing happened. A dead zone. This might be the place I've been searching for. Curiosity has always gotten the best of me. I started to make my plan to break in and see what they were doing over there. I put a wire cutter in my work backpack and cut a small section of the fence until it was large enough for me to squeeze through. I waited for 8 weeks, and the fence was never repaired. It looked like I had my way inside. I just had to work up the nerve to sneak in. I finally decided to do it. On the day of my attempt, I left work early for an appointment and then came back later to finish my shift. It gave me a great excuse for working over to catch up on my hours. After everyone left, I clocked out and moved my truck to a parking lot close by. I changed clothes, then walked back to the body farm and snuck in a side gate using my keys. I made it to the fence and took a small break. I quickly thought about what might happen if they caught me. Would they kill me? A body farm would be a perfect place to dump a dead body, right? I took a deep breath to calm my nerves and pushed down the slit of the fence. As I stepped through the fence, I accidentally scratched the inside part of my hand, grabbing the cut fence. Some blood started to appear, but hopefully it wouldn't leave any on the fence. I'll have to wash it off tomorrow during my shift. I made it through the fence and waited for motion lights or alarms to go off, but there was only silence. I was in. I slowly walked through the forest, trying my best to not make a sound, or move quickly enough to catch anybody's attention. Eventually, I came to a clearing in the trees and looked out to see an open field, then 3 buildings. There was nothing here. It was just 3 small buildings and an open field. One building was larger than the other 2. I assume that is where the headquarters is. For all the secrecy and security, they are running a small operation. Whatever they are doing must be inside of those buildings. I need to get closer to the buildings, and maybe I can catch a glimpse inside. I snuck around to the back side of the building. The rear side was closer and gave me a better view. I think I found what I was looking for. Behind the closest building, there were 4 of the body cages with what looked like 4 bodies inside. They looked like the same ones we used to keep birds off the dead bodies on our side. Why would they do body farm experiments when they could just use our body farm instead? It would be too dangerous to risk moving out of the wooded area, so I just sat and watched. Maybe I would see somebody coming or going, and can learn a little bit more about what they were doing here. I could always come back and watch more now that I had a way in. After about an hour, someone came out of the building wearing a face mask and gloves. I prayed they had not seen me, and then he stopped at the cages. Why would he be going to look at a dead body in the middle of the night, in basically a hazmat suit? They are dead bodies. This is a bit overkill. He grabbed what looked like a stick off the top of the cage, and then poked the body inside of it. The body rolled over and got up to its all fours, back touching the top of the cage. The guard threw something inside the cell, and it started to devour its food like a starving dog. He banged on the cage of the next one, and the body inside threw itself against the cage and let out a growl. This one kept throwing itself against the cage trying to get the guard, but eventually settled for its meal. The 3rd cage must have been empty as he passed it by. He walked up to the 4th cage and the body inside was already up on all fours waiting on him. This one seemed different. This one looked more alive than the others. Then it spoke. "Please, just kill me. Don't turn me into one of those." The guard ignored this one and threw something inside, then went back inside. This is what I came for. This is why they have been keeping a secret. I know I should turn back, but I'm close to figuring out the truth. This might be my only chance. I have to go see what they are keeping caged up. I watched the first 2 caged animals eat their meal, but the 4th one is the one I was the most interested in. That one ignored his meal and was a person. Why was he locked up with the other things? He wasn't an animal. I waited a little longer, then decided enough time had passed since the guard had gone back inside. I crouched down and ran towards the body cages. As I ran past the first 3 cages, the creatures inside started growling and throwing themselves at the side of the cage, trying to attack me. They need to stop drawing so much attention. I quickly went to the 4th one. Inside was a man who looked underweight and sick. "Help," he yelled. "You gotta get me out of here." "Shut up before they come and see what's causing all this noise," I said. "What's going on here?" "They are injecting us with a virus that turns us into one of those," he said and pointed at the cage next to him. "What are those things?" I asked as I looked at the things in the cages. The one next to us had to be a decaying body that had been dead for about 6 months, but somehow was still alive. The skin had a brownish tint to it, and the arms and legs had started to rot. The body and head itself was in surprising shape compared to its limbs. "The virus kills everything non-essential to life. That is why half of it is rotting," he said. "Their mind is gone. All they care about is keeping the virus alive by feeding it." "Zombies? That's impossible," I said, staring at one in disbelief. "How is it even alive with its body decaying?" "The only thing alive in those is the virus. The rest is a shell," he said. "Holy fuck. Is it contagious?" I asked. "It's a virus. Of course it is. Right now it only spreads by open cuts, but it's evolving. It could eventually turn airborne." He was still talking when he was interrupted. "What's going on out here?" a guard yelled. Shut up before I beat you with the stick again." The guard slammed the door shut. "I gotta go. I can't be caught. They will turn me into one of those if they catch me," I said. "Please, you gotta help me," the sickly one said as he reached out and grabbed my left hand. "I am not one of them yet. You gotta help me." "I can't right now," I said and pulled my arm away. "I've gotta get out of here." I looked at the buildings to make sure no guards were watching and ran back into the wooded area. Somehow I had made it back to the relative safety of the woods. I backtracked to where I had cut the hole in the fence and pushed myself through. I took the side gate out and walked back to my truck. I drove home trying to grasp what I had seen. I wish I had just followed the rules and forgot about the restricted area. My curiosity always screws me over. I took a shower and cleaned off. I put some triple antibiotic where I had cut my hand on the fence and covered it with a band-aid. Once I laid down in my bed, exhaustion overtook me and I fell into a deep sleep. The next morning I woke up feeling like crap. I looked at my phone and had 7 missed calls from work, and it was already 2 p.m. I tried to lift my head up off the pillow, but I was too weak. I closed my eyes and fell back asleep. "Josh, Josh." I heard my girlfriend saying while someone was shaking my body. I opened my eyes and saw her leaning over me. "Ashley, what are you doing?" I tried to say, but it came out as a whisper. "You're awake," she said. "You've been sleeping for 3 days. I was about to call an ambulance. When I came to check on you yesterday, you had a fever of over 104. I was going to call an ambulance then, but you said to let you sleep, and rolled over." "I'm okay, really," I said. I wasn't really okay, but I was at least awake. That is an improvement. What is my temperature now? 101. "It was just a small virus or something I must have caught," I said. Did I just say virus? Wait, I bet it was all just a dream. Fever dreams can be crazy. That must be it. I looked down and saw my left hand still had a bandage on it. "What happened to my hand?" I asked. "It was like that when I came over," Ashley said. "You worked late the other night and must have went to bed sick when you got home. There's no way I could have caught that virus. I must have caught something else, and I'm getting better. It has been a few days and I am feeling better, but I'm still worried. I think I might have the virus. Thinking back on the night, the one in the cage grabbed my hand with the cut on it. It is possible I contracted the virus from him. It makes sense of how I got it. It also explains the flu-like symptoms. Even worse, Ashley is now in bed sick with a high fever. I think she may have caught it from me. I don't know what to do next. If I take her to a doctor, they will discover the virus and have her quarantined. Then she will tell them she caught it from me. Once the military doctors discover we caught the virus, they will either have us killed or put into the cages as another experiment. The only other option we have is to run when she is feeling better. I don't know how I'm going to explain this to her. I just hope that the virus is only contagious when you have a fever. We're screwed. I'm not gonna lie, I had a great childhood. I had loving parents. I still do. I got along with my sister. All of my family took care of me and brought me up the best way they could. Most of them were university teachers and researchers, so I also had a pretty big bank of knowledge at my disposal. We never had too much money, since my country was going through a pretty bad economic crisis during my younger years, but it was enough to get us a nice little house next to my grandparents, my old man's mom and dad. We were always extremely close. I loved knitting and taking care of the garden with my grandma, and watching football matches and carpentering with my grandpa. They were like a second pair of parents. My school days went by pretty smoothly. I didn't have the best grades, but they were good enough. So at 18, when I finally finished high school and managed to get into a good college, my grandparents decided that they were going to give me a pretty amazing gift. I was going to spend a month with them traveling through Spain. For the most part, I had a great time as expected. The trip bonded us even farther, and I loved every minute of our seeing beautiful art and architecture. But none of that mattered compared to what happened in a single, fateful night. I have denied and shrugged off the memories for an unbearably long time. But something made me remember, and nothing will ever be the same again. I probably will never, ever again forget what I went through. No matter how hard I try to block them out of my life again, the memories will consume me. That is why I must tell my story, before it is lost forever. It all started during the third week of the trip. We had already visited Madrid, Segovia, and Toledo. Next up was Granada, home to La Alhambra, the most lavish of the Arab places in the Iberian Peninsula. It had been the final bastion of resistance of the last Moorish king, where he spent the final days of his reign, a fairy tale town. Too bad it was filled to the last inch with tourists. We were staying at a hotel called Leonardo. I remember that we arrived at night, at about 8 p.m., after a 4-hour-long train trip. The lobby was pretty nicely decorated and shiny, and the staff was nice, so we weren't expecting the least bit what we were going to find upstairs. It was a pretty tall building for Granadan standards. We were staying in the second to last floor, the 10th one if I remember correctly. This meant that we had a good view of the whole city, and that was pretty much the only good thing about the place. The corridor leading to our room was old and musty, covered in a pink and peach striped wallpaper that had suffered a few decades of constant humidity, probably from a leaky pipe. It had a low ceiling with a row of dim lights, and a carpeted floor with a grayish hue to it that had probably once been beige. The room itself wasn't too different, with the added discomfort of an old bathroom, stained bed sheets, and an old springy mattress that could have been at least twice my age. Nothing like what we had seen in the pictures. Nonetheless, we were more interested in the city itself than the boring old hotel. So we unpacked as quickly as we could, and went out for a nocturnal bite and short walk. Before going out though, we complained to one of the receptionists about the state of our room. He politely explained that this particular hotel building had passed through several owners and hotel chains, like an old hand-me-down that no one really wanted, but accepted anyways. Apparently, the owners had only bothered to refurbish the lobby, and left the rest of the building just as they found it. Fair enough. The hotel staff had nothing to do with the owner's carelessness. Plus, we had already paid for our stay, and did not have the time nor the will to find another place. So we had our supper, got the feel of the town, and came back at about 11. The first night was surprisingly not bad. We were completely exhausted from the long train ride, and wanted nothing more than to get our fair share of sleep. And that we did. I woke up after a dreamless night. I hadn't even noticed the hardness of the old mattress. I felt great. It all started when we were getting ready to leave our room that morning. It was 9:10 when we heard a low knocking on the door. Knock, knock, knock. And then there came a voice. Cleaning service. It was an old lady's voice, with a deep Spanish accent. I opened the door and let her in. I gazed at her while she greeted us with a good morning in barely understandable English. She was a very peculiar old woman. Her wrinkled skin was rather pale, but it was covered in brown stains from years of exposure to the sun. Her hands looked rugged and calloused, roughened by years of hard work. She had deep, teary green eyes that contrasted with her silky black mane. I couldn't help but stare at it. Her hair looked so soft that it could have belonged to a 10-year-old. Only the odd gray hair gave it away. We finished grabbing our things, and were about to go out when I suddenly remembered that I had forgotten to grab my wallet. I told my grandparents to meet me downstairs and went back in the room. Quickly, I searched for the wallet on the nightstand, but it wasn't there. I was reaching under the bed when suddenly the woman said, "Don't worry, I already picked it up." She reached out her hand. I thanked her and took the wallet. And as I did, our skins touched. Her skin felt damp and cold. Too cold. For an instant, I felt as if my body had been filled with melting ice. A sudden urge to get the old lady out of my sight as fast as possible grew inside me. So I quickly said goodbye, and practically ran out of the room. But as I was closing the door, I felt the coldness grow inside me once again and turned around. The cleaning lady was staring directly into my eyes, smiling a knowing smile. The smile that said she was in on the joke, and I was not. I practically slammed the door shut. For the rest of the day, I had the old woman in the back of my mind. Every time I zoned out, I would remember that seemingly unexplained coldness I had felt deep in my bones. To my great satisfaction, though, I still managed to have a good time. I had managed to convince myself of the irrationality of being scared by a simple old lady. I was such a baby. But by the time we returned to the hotel that night, I was crossing my fingers in hope that I wouldn't have to see that woman ever again. My grandparents decided that they were going to stay at the 24-hour lobby bar for a little while to grab some tea, but I decided to go straight to our room. I was ready to sleep tight and get ready for our final tourist day of non-stop walking in Granada. It wasn't to be. Before getting in bed, I got the sudden urge to have a hot shower. It had been a long day and I deserved it. It was a long shower. While the water flowed through my hair, I thought about how happy the three of us were, and all the pictures and postcards we were going to bring back home. But then the cleaning lady came into my mind once again, and I started to get anxious. Why hadn't my grandparents come up yet? I was about to grab a towel and get out, when I heard a loud bang. The lights suddenly went out and the water got cold. A power failure. Oh well. I should have expected it from a building in such bad conditions. Naked, wet, and in the dark, I blindly reached for my phone and turned on my flashlight. It was exactly 12 o'clock. Why hadn't my grandparents come back? I wrapped the towel around my waist and reached for the door handle while holding my phone in the other hand. The door didn't budge. I tried harder, but nothing happened. The door was stuck. What terrible timing. Suddenly I heard footsteps. Great, my grandparents had come. Grandma, Grandpa, are you there? I called out. No answer. I called out again. Still no reply. I started to get spooked. If it wasn't my grandparents, then who the hell was in our room? And what reason would they have to not reply to my calls? The footsteps continued. I tried the handle again and was about to slam my body against the door, but luckily thought twice before doing it. If the person that had come in the room didn't want me to open the door, was it a good idea to confront him? After all, if he was armed, the encounter could get me badly hurt or worse. So I locked the bathroom door on my side as a safety measure and decided to call 911. But then I remembered that I didn't have any service. I hadn't bothered to buy a phone chip for the trip. So I tried the internet, but of course, it had gone out along with the electricity. I was getting desperate. The footsteps continued inside the room for a few seconds, and suddenly I froze. The footsteps were nearing the bathroom door. This was getting out of hand. And then I heard it. Knock, knock. And another. Knock, knock, knock. Only one thought filled my mind. The cleaning lady. Everything hit me all at once. I felt her outside my door. It was the same agonizingly cold, wet feeling from that morning, but way, way worse. It was the same feeling you get when that freezing early winter rain hits you hard on the face, but deep, deep inside of your bones. And there was dread too. Bucket loads of dread filling my heart. What could she possibly want from me? Was that thing outside the bathroom door even a she? It was too much, and so I froze. My knees turned to rubber, and I collapsed in the corner, unthinking and unmoving. I was knocked out of my state of trance by a sudden bang. The woman, or should I say creature, that stood outside the bathroom had grown tired of knocking. Bang, bang. Harder and louder this time. The door wouldn't hold much longer. At this point, the adrenaline had kicked in. I placed my phone on the counter, grabbed the toilet ceramic lid, and got ready to hit whatever monster came through the door. Bang. The door opened violently. What was standing right in front of me did not look like a monster. There was no mistaking what I had managed to see from the dim glow coming from my phone's flashlights. It was the cleaning lady, all right, but she looked nothing like what I had seen that morning. Her perfect black hair had grown longer. It was so long that it spread around the floor like spilled water. She stood naked and still, right at the door, looking straight at me, unblinking. What I saw when I looked at her eyes made me grow still, letting the adrenaline fade away and the coldness and dread take me once again. They were not that deep green shade from earlier that day anymore. In fact, they weren't any color at all. They were white. Completely white. A pair of colorless, lifeless balls. Then she started walking towards me in a perfect line, as if she were being guided by a vector. I dropped my weapon. It was the least human walk I'd ever witnessed. It was as if a creature, some unknown, dark being, had put on a suit and was trying, and failing, to look like a member of our species. The beast in the old woman's body walked in the same otherworldly fashion until it got right next to me and opened its mouth, revealing a set of perfect white teeth. I was completely paralyzed. It opened its mouth so wide that its jaw started to crunch and its skin to tear. A gray liquid started to pour from its throat. In that moment, I realized what it was about to do. I felt it in my gut. It was going to take a bite. It was going to feed. Yet I couldn't move. The coldness just wouldn't let me. Then there was another feeling. Acceptance. My body had given up. given up to the creature. I was to be a part of it. A new skin for its collection, just like the one it was wearing right now. Out of nowhere, I heard a second bang from somewhere in the building, and light filled my eyes. The power was back. I blinked for the first time in what felt like a million years, and when I opened my eyes, there was nothing in front of me. It was gone. I closed my eyes for one last time that night. The next time I opened them, I was no longer in the bathroom corner. I was laying in my bed the next morning. It was as if absolutely nothing had happened. Had it all been a terrifyingly real nightmare? That is what my body led me to believe. As a coping mechanism, my brain made me forget. It made me think of the events that night as mere products of my imagination. And it worked. The rest of the trip went by just as expected. I came home, and continued on with my life just as expected. This was 4 years ago. Every time I came close to thinking about the events of that dreadful night, a cerebral mist clouded my memory. 2 days ago, something clicked. Something that made everything come back to me. It was as if a ticking time bomb had been planted that night in my brain, just waiting for the right time to explode. One night, out of nowhere, I started to dream. My first dream was a perfect recreation of that terrible night, ending just seconds before I succumbed to the creature. Ever since, I have been blanking out several times a week, losing track of time, and forgetting whole parts of my day. Spans of several hours have been getting blurry, but the worst part of my day is nighttime. Then everything comes back to me. I dream of coldness, of death. Sometimes I can see people, scared people. A dark being always closes in on them, but they can't move. Can't run. The cold won't let them. I never get to see the end of those nightmares. Not that I need to. I have considered several times visiting a psychiatrist, but I don't think it'll do any good. And I'm pretty sure I know why, even if I don't want to say or think it. I have since come to terms with my fate and the inevitability of the truth, so I'll tell it to you as a final goodbye. I think that night in Granada, I might not have escaped the monster after all. Before I start this, I want to explain. This story is 100% true. I experienced it and so did my friends. These experiences happened about 2 weeks ago, and I had no idea who to tell besides my parents. Then I found this page, so let me start. My best friend Adam and I were house sitting my other friend Avery's house. They went on a family vacation and needed us to babysit their dog Athena. We're in high school, so Adam, Avery, and I have a really close friendship. Avery told us that this house can be kind of creepy at night. The house creaks and Athena sometimes barks and stares at corners in the middle of the night. Adam stayed there alone the first night. He said Avery's house gave him the creeps. Adam wanted me to spend the rest of the nights there with him, because the house scares him at night. This kinda surprised me, because Avery lives in a middle-class neighborhood that was recently built in the last couple of years. I go over to his house, and immediately I can say that the house was not creepy at all. We played some video games in the living room, the room we stayed mostly when we were house sitting. When it turned nighttime, something about the house did seem odd. Everything in the corner of my eye looked human. For example, the blinds for the back door were messed up, and it looked like an outline of a man. Nothing happened that night. Nothing at all. But the next couple of nights, shit went down. I wake up, I go to work, get off work, go back to the house to hang out. We got bored easily. We like to skate around town or go to the skate park, so we decided on leaving the house and going to the high school. It's summertime, so the campus is always empty, and it's all concrete, so it's fun to skate on. We went with Adam's cousin Kyler to go skate, and we talked about a rumor about the high school. Since the high school was built in the 60s, there's apparently tunnels under the high school leading to some nuclear shelter, and every building on campus has an entrance. So, we found one outside of the C Hall building and went down it. Surprisingly, it was unlocked and easy to open. During the school year, it was always locked, and when it wasn't, it was impossible to open. The tunnel went down for about 100 feet in 2 directions, then led to a crawl space that no one wanted to go through. We then left. But as we were leaving, we saw a building open, and it wasn't when we first got there. It was kind of like a shed. It was a huge storage unit, probably used by janitors. It has a truck in there, and 2 golf carts used by the principals to get around campus. The lights were on. It was strange that it opened. At 1 AM. We went to investigate and no one was in there at all. After we went in the tunnels is when the creepy shit started happening, which freaked Adam after we talked about it afterwards. But back to the story. We go back to Avery's house, and this gives me chills just thinking about it. I still have no explanation. Adam was making food, and Kyler was playing video games. I leave my phone to charge while I go to the garage to get some water bottles for all of us. The door to the garage from inside the house is heavy, and really loud. So pay attention to this carefully. I go to the door and I unlock it, open it, and leave it open. I go and grab the water bottles, walk back, and the door is shut and locked. I initially thought they were playing a prank on me, so I knocked on the door loudly saying, "Come on bro, open the door." No response. No footsteps, no noise. I knocked about 3 different times, until I realized the garage was too far from the living room, and the sound of the video games prevented them from hearing me. The silence of the garage scared me. It was messy too, which freaked me out even more. Waiting in there, I started to question why I never heard the door close. Then after about 2 or 3 minutes of waiting, I knock on the door pretty loud, yelling for them to open it. About 15 seconds go by and Adam unlocks the door and opens it. Immediately with the expression on his face, I could tell he was confused. And he asked, "Were you knocking?" I said, "Yeah." "Why'd you lock it on me, bro?" He said, "Wait, you're not playing? I was making Hot Pockets, man." That's when my heart dropped. Who locked and closed the door on me? After telling Kyler and Adam what happened, we went back to the garage door to see if it locked itself, or if there was any way that I could have accidentally closed it on myself. After experimenting, there's no way that could have happened. While we were walking back to the living room, the closet door slid open, in front of us. It's a slide closet door. It's heavy and kinda hard to move, and it slid open and made a loud banging sound when it opened. We freaked out to say the least, and ran out of the house. We were ready to leave. Then Adam needed to grab something from Avery's room, and he needed to grab Athena because she can't sleep alone. While Adam was in Avery's room, the door slammed on him. In his face. He ran out of the house and we drove to Kyler's house and stayed the night there. Nothing happened the next day until nighttime, so I'll start there. Adam and I were hanging out with our friend Fiona at my house. We then told her about what happened the night before, and she was actually excited to go to a haunted house, as we called it. So then after an hour or so, we decided to go there. It was nighttime, so the house was pretty creepy, especially after what we just experienced the previous night. We're hanging out, listening to music, and we go to the same hallway the closet is in. The hallway leads directly to the closet then turns, which leads to Avery's room. Just to give you an image. We told Fiona that this is the closet, and she opened it. Nothing was really in there. There were some dog treats for Athena, so Fiona fed Athena a treat. Then closed the closet. We were looking at Avery's baby pictures, which were hung up on the hallway's wall. Avery was an ugly baby, and I was making fun of the pictures for a good couple minutes. Then Fiona said, "What if the closet door just slid open, right now? What would you do?" I said, "I'd run." Then a couple seconds later, a loud, forceful bang came from the closet, making the sliding door swing back and forth. The bang was so loud that the picture frames on the wall moved, and I can remember them slanting. We ran out of the house fast as hell. Adam squeezed his water bottle, basically blinding me until I could get out of the house. When we finally got in my car, I started crying. So did Fiona. Adam was in awe at what just happened. We called his brother to tell him what just happened while me and Fiona were freaking out. Adam still had to grab Athena from the house, so we both went inside to get her. It took only but a second. We go to my house to sleep. We couldn't sleep that night. None of us. We just tried to explain what happened, but none of us came up with any explanation. Then finally, we go to sleep around 7 AM. When Adam woke up, he had to take Athena to Avery's house to feed her. So he went there and the closet door was open. So he closed it. He went to the restroom to take a piss, goes back in the hallway, and the closet door was open again. After all this, Adam and I both refused to go back to his house. We took Athena to our house to babysit her, but we knew for a fact that we were never going to spend a night at Avery's house ever again. I'm sorry if this is really unorganized. I tried my hardest to not leave out any details. I really just want to know what it could have been. Thank you guys for taking the time to read this. It means a lot to me. I just want to be heard. I've never experienced anything like this before, and experiencing it honestly changed my life in a way. Heartbreak is a bitch. After my boyfriend and I parted ways, I was devastated. I couldn't think straight. Wave after wave of grief would hit me, as I struggled to make sense of my feelings. I had no control over how I felt. At any given point of time, I was lost. This came to affect all aspects of my life, including my health, relationships, and studies. One evening I found myself on the beach sitting alone. I gazed absent-mindedly as the waves came crashing and receded, only to repeat the process all over again. The sun was setting, a fiery orange ball slowly descending into the horizon. I buried my face in my hands and cried. Great, heaving sobs shook my body. As I continued to mourn my relationship, the tears just wouldn't stop, no matter how much I willed them to. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break everything around me. I wanted to disappear into the sea and never return. I felt someone's hand on my head. I looked up tearfully. An old, wizened man with a kind face stood there, looking concerned. "Little one, what is causing you so much pain?" He asked me gently. The boy I loved with all my heart left me. I said in a barely audible whisper, "I can't imagine my life without him." He was still for a moment. "Will you walk with me? Give this old man some company?" I sniffled and rose to my feet, stumbling a little as I pulled myself up. I clutched my bag closer to me and walked beside him. He led me to the shore, where the waves met the land. "Stand here," he said. The waves leapt over my feet and playfully receded. "Breathe in every time the waves wash over your feet. Breathe out every time they go back." I obeyed. After 5 minutes of silence, he spoke again. "Can you feel the sand slipping from under your feet?" I nodded. "The more you stay in the same place, you will get stuck. Standing here at the same spot will not lead to anything except sinking farther into the sand, will it? It is best to keep walking." He started walking and signaled for me to follow. I looked around me. A woman was walking her dog. A group of boys played football. A young couple held hands and gushed over each other. The little girl was enjoying her cotton candy. They all looked happy. They all smiled. Why couldn't I? I tried to smile. My cheeks felt frozen. I tried baring my teeth. My face just wouldn't contort itself into a smile. I sighed. "Change is the only constant in life, my child," the old man said, breaking the ball of silence between us. "Change is good if it's for the better," I argued. What good came out of my breakup? All it did was cause me pain and suffering. "I didn't say all change is good." He twinkled. "Sometimes there are some undesirable changes as well, but what doesn't kill us only makes us stronger." I thought of the person I called the love of my life, how he would hold my hand whenever we crossed the road, his big warm hand engulfing mine, how he listened to all my rants patiently and held my hair back whenever I puked, how he kissed my frozen nose at Snow World and said I was the best thing that ever happened to him. The old man picked up some sand in his palm. "In many ways, this sand is symbolic of relationships. The tighter you try to hold on, the faster it slips from between your fingers." He demonstrated. "Child, don't be so hard on yourself. You did everything you could. It's not meant to be. God has better things lined up for you." I nodded. "I must go now, but I will pray for you. Be happy always." He put his hand up as if to bless me. I sat down silently as I held some sand in my right hand. It felt warm to touch. I squeezed it as hard as I could, and the faster it slipped out of my hands, between my fingers, from the corner of my palms. I don't know if it was the crying, or the old man's words, but it felt as if a huge load had been lifted off my chest. For months I had struggled with the guilt that he had left me because of my actions, my wrongdoings, my words. Yes, we loved each other a lot, but maybe it just wasn't meant to be. It was time to move on to better things in life. I walked back from the beach to the main road, and I thought back to the encounter. A smile crossed my face. I continued to go back to the beach over the next year. It became my happy place. Sometimes I would meet the old man, and he'd often discuss some of his philosophies with me. I poured my heart out to him, and slowly but steadily, I had started healing. I began to go out more, immersed myself in activities, and met my friends more often. He always wore the same outfit, a white kurta and pajamas, his face calm and smiling. I couldn't help but notice that beneath the serene demeanor, he hid a deep sadness that would sometimes cross his face whenever he gazed out at the sea. "Uncle, would you like some peanuts?" I held out a packet for him, stuffing my face at the same time. He shook his head. "I don't eat much." "More peanuts for me," I thought. We continued to walk. "Where do you stay?" I asked. "Near Iskon Temple," he said. Before I could say anything, I got a call from my best friend Neil.
Where are you? Our semester results are out. Come to college quickly,
he hurriedly advised. I rushed to college, my hands clammy and heart racing. Ever since my breakup, my grades had plummeted. This was my make or break moment. I had worked hard to bring my GPA up, and this was important. I checked my grades on the bulletin board. A 3.6, even better than I had hoped. I hugged Neil and called my parents to tell them the good news. And then, I thought of the one person without whom this would not have been possible. "Neil, can you come with me to Iskon Temple? I need to share this good news with Uncle." "He lives there?" "No, you idiot, he lives nearby. But he must be visiting the temple during his evenings. He seems pretty religious." We went to the temple with a box of sweets, and searched for him throughout the temple complex. No sign of him. "He must be at the beach. It's still daylight out," Neil suggested. "You're right." I winced. Why didn't I think of this earlier? I must have thought about the temple since he mentioned it before I left. We made our way out when something caught my eye. I froze. I felt my blood run cold. On the wall was a list of top donors to the temple, and in the middle of the wall was a picture of the same old man, with his name and year of death. This must be a mistake, I thought, goosebumps rising on my skin. We went to the temple office to find out more. "Do you know anything about Mr. Patel? His picture is up on the wall," I asked the gruff-looking man on the counter. His face softened. "He was a gem of a person," he started. "Always willing to lend a helping hand, always went out of his way to make others feel comfortable. We never thought he would be gone like that." "How did he die?" Neil asked. "He was heartbroken after his youngest daughter drowned herself at the beach. Her husband had divorced her, the poor girl. He drowned himself at the same place. I think he was unable to cope with her loss." I went blank after that. After a few days, I went back to the temple and offered a small prayer for him, for the soul of a kind man who helped a young girl, and offered her words of solace. "May he find his peace someday," I silently prayed. Something pointless and dumb is on TV, and it's raining. That heavy weird flash rain that keeps happening lately. Right when I thought I should probably charge my phone just in case the power went out. The power went out. I sigh and slowly stand up from my couch, threading my way past the discarded pizza boxes and mismatched furniture that populates my living room, until I manage to get to the window. Peering out the rain-streaked glass, I can see the rest of my block is in total darkness as well. Beside the window I find my phone, right where I had left it, right next to the charging cord, not plugged in. Of course I didn't plug it in, but maybe I didn't need to. Maybe there's enough of a charge. Hopefully. I hit the power button. Nothing. Just me in the dark. What did people do before electricity? Before fire? They must have slept as soon as it got dark. Insomnia is a modern problem. We can't sleep because we can be doing something else. Watching another TV show, or playing another video game, or sending another text. The dark. What can you do in the dark? I look out the window again, trying to see if I can make out anything in the rain. It's still pouring down out there, soaking everything. Wet trees as far as I could see. Something about trees in the dark always freaks me out. In the day, trees are just part of the landscape. At night though, the way they spike and loom, like they're made out of stretched shadows. When I turn back, away from the view, I'm surprised by just how endlessly dark it is in my place. No street lights glowing their way in. No electronics blinking their little fires without heat. My phone turns on. The screen is suddenly bright white, like it's restarting. All the darkness changes. The bits closest to the screen become visible, while the other parts grow somehow even blacker, like rotten fruit. The Apple icon on my phone goes away, and then the home screen is there. A photo I took of power lines near my work. It must have been restarting before, I think. It only looked dead. It was alive the whole time. I see there's a text on it, from some number not in my contacts. It's a video. I hit play. The tiny box of an image shows a screen of blackness. Not an absence of light, just blackness. The phone goes dead again. It drops out of my hand and I say screw it, but this time I say it out loud, and the noise echoes in the room, in this strange empty and lightless room, where everything suddenly seems so much darker than before. There is no noise anywhere, no humming of refrigerators, no beeping of texts, only a silence as deep and unknowable as the dark. I can hear my heart beating in my ears. Everything feels wrong. I didn't just lose power. I know this instinctually. Something wrong happened. I don't know what. But there's a change. A bad one. No noise. Of course. No noise but the rain. Heavy, loud, echoing. Building up on the street below. Spilling out of gutters. Splashing into sewers. Wet and heavy and unending. Last week there were flash floods. A month's worth of rain in a day, the news said. A guy drowned in his SUV when he tried to drive through a street that had suddenly become a river. Staring out at the night, at the shadows, at the way they seemed to be almost moving. Patches of the night attaching and removing themselves from deep attaching, almost like they're moving. At the end of the street, the lights of a house flicker. All at once, the shadows seem to race to it. They ooze and run across lawns. In between raindrops, they hit the front yard and spray themselves across the house. The lights go out, and I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I don't know how long it is until I hear the knock on the door. I've been trying to count seconds. Every 60 seconds, another minute. But I keep losing track. I'm at 45 when there's a rapping. It's quiet. Barely noticeable over the rain, but it's there. I move to the door. I can't see anything through the peephole. If anything, the hallway is darker, if that's possible. How is that possible? How is any of this possible? Another knock. A tap. Soft. And then a voice. Greg, are you there? All the tension in me disappears. It's Amy from upstairs. She's nice, normal, and sane. Exactly who I want to see. Amy? Hey, can you let me in? It's super dark out here. Sure. I'm saying and I'm already opening the door, but something in me says to wait. Greg, are you letting me in? It's really weird out here. Super dark. Yeah, I am, I say. It's just... I'm thinking of vampire movies. Dead friends on the doorstep, asking to be let in. Their white teeth radioactive and glowing in the night. What did I bring to your apartment last week? What? She sounds mad. Confused and mad. I don't know. Something goes dead in me. I can't let you in. Greg, are you kidding? I don't remember every interaction we've ever had. What did I bring to your apartment last week? My voice is a dull monotone, but all I can hear is the rain and the pounding of my heart. You need to let me in. You need to. She bangs against the door. Hard. I step back. What the hell? Let me in. She's hammering the door with both hands, and I push against it with my body. Behind me, I can feel all the shadows. God damn it. She's shouting, but she stops, her voice trailing off. Oh God, there's... Greg, I think there's... I keep hearing something in my apartment. I think something's out here. Don't listen. I think. Don't listen. I can't remember what you brought me, but it was a package. Last week, from UPS. They brought it to the wrong apartment. I look up and start to unlock the front door, but I can't. She's saying please, but it's not to me. And then she starts to scream. I press my hands against my ears until the screaming stops. The lights turn on in my apartment. They turn on all up and down the streets. I don't open my door until the sun comes up, and when I do, there's Amy on the other side, staring at me with deep black, ocean-colored eyes. You were smart to not open the door. She says in a strange sounding voice, because if you did, I would have taken two. not just one. The thing that was Amy trembles and disappears, melting away until there is nothing left but a shadow. A patch of darkness in the middle of the light. Just a shadow.